Hey there, Go community. This is Jeff Swann from the Nindie Nation Podcast. Zack and the rest of the podcast crew invited me on the show this week to talk about what we'd like to see from the next generation of consoles. In news, we discuss what kind of work Xbox's new chief marketing officer has cut out for him, as well as what developers think about the increasing presence of gaming subscription services. New games discussed include Coffee Talk and 1980X, so get those Joy-Cons synced. This is the Gaming Outsider.
Greetings, programs, and welcome to episode 279 of The Gaming Outsider, a video game podcast with a focus on our incredible community. It's Monday, January 27th. I'm your host, Scott Clark, and I'm joined, as always, by my fellow co-host. First off, a guy who is sharing in the sickness with me, even though he's a couple states away, Mr. Zach Parkerson. How you doing, man?
Yeah, man, what is that? Is it just like, we're like connected on a soul level?
You know, like on an ET level, like I get sick, you get sick, but I think we're a different kind of sick. Like you've got the flu or something, right?
Yeah, some kind of stomach flu situation. It's happening all over.
Well, this will be an interesting podcast, so if you hear either of us hack a little bit, you'll know why. It's been a long day. I literally got off work around 2:30, came home and went to bed, and got up about an hour ago to do this podcast. So,
I envy you.
Yeah, I
had to work a double.
Ooh. Well, that's what happens. Welcome to being a manager, man. How you like it?
I've been a manager before. This is a whole other situation.
Sounds like it. Well, if you haven't figured it out yet, Chris Behrensmeyer is not here today. Neither is Chris Owens. But it gave us a good opportunity to bring on a very special guest for this episode of The Gaming Outsider. It gives me great pleasure to welcome to the show a friend of mine that I met at the Married to the Games 100th episode recording, which is a fellow podcast of ours, Mr. Jeff Swann from the Nindie Nation Podcast. How you doing, Jeff?
Greetings. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Yeah, dude, I am really happy that you decided to come pop on with us. I haven't seen you since 200, I believe, was when... Or no, 300. Were you there at 300?
Yeah, because you brought your wife and another couple down for 300, right?
Yeah, it was Noah and Shireen. Well, Noah and Shireen were there for 100.
Well, yeah,
actually.
I knew that. I thought there was another. You were going to see like a family member or something that was in town, or maybe
what it was is I think for 200 we came down with my brother and his then wife.
They're all running together.
Yeah, it was a good time. But are you going to be down there for 400?
I have bought my tickets.
So have I. So for those not familiar, a podcast that Jeff and I both listen to, Married to the Games. It's a great group of guys. It's actually how I met Jeff. But every 100th episode, they do a live recording and they invite listeners to come down to Nashville and join in the celebration, play some games together, and it's just become kind of a biannual tradition, I guess, since it's 100 episodes. And that's how I met Jeff. Man, that was 300 episodes ago, 200 and something episodes ago. So,
I mean, at the first one, I don't think I had a kid yet, and now I've got a 6-year-old and a 2-year-old.
Okay, yeah, that says a lot right there.
That was a long time ago.
I remember we all met at some restaurant in like this mall complex. Do you remember?
Yeah.
Because we organized a dinner of all the listeners, and that's actually where we met Chris before he was actually a permanent member on the show. Remember that?
Yeah, I mean, back in that first episode, that episode 100, there were 8 of us, I think there, maybe?
Yes, something like that. we were part of the originals, even though you don't get mentioned on their show for being there every time, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Well, anyway, yeah, be sure to check out Married to the Games. It's a great group of guys, and they're a lot of fun to listen to. But have you been listening to us since I met you, or?
The show has been in my rotation, and I'm a frequent listener whenever I have a chance. You know, it's weird. I used to get so much podcast time in for my job. I'm in sales, so I drive all over the place, and recently, over the last few months, my territory shrunk, which is a good thing, but it means I don't get as much podcast time. So
Right.
all of my podcasts, I've been falling behind a little bit for the last few months. But yeah, you guys are always in the rotation, always listening, and love what you guys do here.
Oh, very cool, man. If you want to get some more podcast time, start exercising. That's what I did, and I burned through like an 18-hour podcast in less than 2 weeks. So,
yeah, that's the way to do it.
Yeah, it really is. That'll motivate you to get back to the gym because you always want to go back to listen to whatever you're listening to. So,
well, what about Ring Fit? Are you still on that?
I did it the one time, and I fully intend to go back to it. But like I mentioned, I've been sick since Friday, and so I actually haven't exercised since Friday afternoon. So I'm trying to get rid of whatever this is before I jump back into it. So I'm not skipping it because, being that guy, I physically can't exercise right now until I kick this. So I plan on getting back to it, but it's a lot more work than it looks like, man. I'm telling you. Have you played it yet?
I haven't, but I had a blast watching all the different YouTubers and other podcasts that I always keep in touch with, and just watching all of them say the exact same thing. This just that it kicked their butts.
Yeah. It's shocking how well it works. Zach, you've got it. Have you played it yet?
No, it's
Still
not
a
going to
mess.
happen. No, not for a while.
It's not going to happen.
Just, hey man, I feel you on the lack of podcast time though. Big time. This new job has cut in deeply, and I refuse to cut any podcasts loose.
How many do you listen to?
A bunch. Too many. Full disclosure, there's, the one that I've listened to for probably 10 years that I haven't listened to in about a month, and it's
I know which
weird.
one that is.
You
Don't
do,
I?
yes. You do
I
know,
do know.
yeah. I think I texted you about this
You
big
did.
news. Yeah, but
I was pretty shocked.
Why is it a secret?
I don't want to disparage any other potential podcasts out there.
Fair enough.
Yeah, it'd be one thing if we talked about one that we listened to, but hey, this
Right.
podcast is so great, I stopped listening to it a month ago.
Yeah, it's just not. But hey, there's a lot of good comic book podcasts out there. Just so anybody knows. Casual
believe
Wednesdays. Great show.
I am on this true crime podcast kick right now. That 18-hour podcast I told you about was about it was called Cold. It was a case out in Utah about this guy that was suspected of murdering his wife. And
Dope.
what's did you say dope?
Yeah.
It is a messed up story, man, and this isn't a spoiler because they tell you in the first 10 minutes of the first episode, but he winds up locking himself up in his house with his two sons and setting the place on fire with barrels of gasoline. And it's still unknown where the wife is and whether or not he actually did it. But it is a fascinating listen if you like true crime podcasts at all.
Yeah, I might check that out. Those things are fascinating. Those
really
kind of
is.
stories.
Especially this one because they have a lot of audio from the guy. His name is Josh. Do you remember the Josh Powell case from out in Utah, Seattle area? It was 2008, 2009.
I don't know.
It got national news. And it is some of the creepiest stuff I've ever listened to. It sounds like you're listening to a horror movie novelization at some points because there's no way that these people actually exist. I don't want to tell you too much, but seriously, check it out.
Can you spoil true crime?
Well, no, because you could technically go look it up, but I mean, you could also go
Right.
look up the ending of Avengers Endgame if you really wanted to, right?
Is this like when the Hobbit movie came out and people got mad at me for talking about it?
Or when
Even
people
though
got
it was-
mad for spoiling the Titanic, the boat sank.
Hey
Huh.
now. I haven't seen that one yet.
Have you really not seen Titanic?
No, I've seen Titanic.
Yeah, I think
Oh,
most,
okay.
yeah. James Cameron makes movies that everyone sees.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, anyway, we should get moving on. I think we should.
Do you want to talk about video games?
I do want to talk about video games, and I know that Jeff for sure is not a sports fan at all. I think you're the one that introduced me to the term sports ball, if I'm not mistaken.
I wear that badge proudly.
Yeah, and I know Zach doesn't outside of a little bit of Cubs baseball, but yesterday was pretty tragic. The passing of Kobe Bryant, who was played for the NBA, played for the Lakers. tragic helicopter crash, which was a bummer. And the reason I did want to bring it up, even though we're not big on sports here, is I saw people trying to sell copies of Kobe Bryant's NBA Showdown, whatever game it was, on Nintendo 64, trying to sell it for like $120 on eBay.
Did you buy it?
No, just the fact that people are like, less than a day of his passing, people are already trying to capitalize and make money off of somebody's death. Like that game is going to be valuable or something. I don't know. It just...
If we know one thing about buying and collecting video games, it's that sports games are not the ones that increase in any value whatsoever.
You'd be surprised. There is one, and I only know this because CB, who's on our team here, is trying to collect all the GameCube games right now. And one of the rarest ones is a copy of NCAA 14. I think it's 14.
Right. Is that the last year they produced?
Right. And they actually pulled it off the shelf because they went through that whole legal fiasco like months after the game came out. So it was only available for a short window and it became extremely rare. So, but yes, you're right. In most cases, sports games do not hold their value at all. So, but I'm not even a big basketball guy, and but I know the name Kobe Bryant for sure. I mean,
Kobe.
Yeah, exactly. You make a shot and you say Kobe.
Right.
And so sad, tragic loss there. But let's go ahead, like Zach said, and talk about video games and jump into the news for the week. Not a whole lot happening this week. We kind of had to scrape the barrel for some stuff here, but I know Bob found this story about Jarrett West, who is coming back to Microsoft as the Chief Marketing Officer. This is just in time for the release of the Xbox One Series X. You may be wondering why does that name sound familiar? He used to be part of the Xbox marketing team back during the Xbox 360 era, and he left to work at American Express. He was at Netflix for a little while. Now he's back at Xbox again as the Chief Marketing Officer. And the hope is that he'll guide the company well as it launches the Xbox Series X, much like he did with the Xbox 360, which we know was a pretty successful console. But what do you guys think? Is this a good move for Microsoft, or did you not even know the name until I just said it?
I think if there's one thing that Microsoft needs more than anything going into this next generation is a rock-solid message. And I think we all know that that's where they fell apart in the Don Matrick era with the Xbox One. I was thinking about this. Do either of you remember what the 2-word slogan was that was on every commercial, every box, all of that during the Xbox 360 era? Do you remember?
Was it Jump In?
Exactly. Now, what was the slogan for the Xbox One?
All in one? I don't know.
See, I was just going to assume it was like TV. But the point is, there wasn't one. And
right.
And I think that, you know, in my job, I do a lot of work with chief marketing officers. That's one of the most consistent people I interface with. And they are absolutely about the biggest picture and looking at how an organization positions itself, not just the product, but also how does the Xbox division separate itself from Microsoft, and what does the brand not just mean for the Series X and the Series whatever comes after that, but, you know, the biggest picture, what does this brand, this box, this service mean for the future? And I think having someone that led that charge, or at least was a part of the team back during the heyday of the, you know, clearly successful Xbox 360, I think that's a great way to start the next generation.
I agree. I think they've really got to come out the gate swinging here because, you know, they're still playing catch up to Sony at this point. Even though Sony is doing things differently than Microsoft is. I know that Zach has been talking about playing the PS Now subscription games. So they've got that service, but it still feels like Microsoft is making better moves in that regards, but not everybody knows about it. Like you said, it's got to be marketed correctly. Do you think this is, or what do you think they need to do, Zach?
Well, I think, leaning into Game Pass would be smart, especially with the first-party games on there. You know, what's fascinating about Game Pass is I feel like it dominates the conversation, but it makes less money than PlayStation Now.
Really?
Yeah, like I remember those stats came out at the end of last year, and that's wild. Like I guess that kind of shows me how much Xbox is the underdog going into this next generation.
Yeah, it really does.
And and it helps illustrate there is probably a very real and strong reason why they do not report console sales numbers anymore. So bringing in the 360 sales guy or marketing guy rather, seems like an incredibly smart thing to do. With Phil Spencer at the helm, you bought up a bunch of developers, build that first party portfolio. PlayStation is, eating their own feet right now. They're just saying dumb things. So,
and look at where he came from, most recently coming from Netflix. And if there's any company that understands the importance, even if it's a loss leader, the importance of a subscription service and how you message the value of what you get. I mean, we all know that just like with Game Pass on Netflix, you watch maybe 0.1% of the catalog. It's more so the convenience, the catalog as a whole. And I think bringing someone in that specifically has been doing that over the last decade or however long, that's the right person to have at the helm right now.
I think I spend more time scrolling through my Netflix looking for something to watch than I do actually watching something. That's how much stuff.
But have you tossed a coin to your Witcher?
Oh my goodness, that song is so good.
Oh, Valley of Plenty.
I'll go for like a couple days and that song will be out of my head, and then I'll just see like a meme pop up, and then I can't get it out of my head for the rest of the day.
The song is fascinating because you hear it in the show, and I was like, that's what everyone's freaking out about. And then like 2 days later, I'm like, oh, Valley of Plenty.
Did you watch it, Jeff?
No, I haven't watched it yet, but just as you saw so many people jump onto Steam and start playing the game, I missed The Witcher, and I've always wanted to play it. It's definitely one of my biggest gaming shames is missing The Witcher. Just seeing the show out there makes me want to get back into it. And my wife loves Game of Thrones, and it seems like this is kind of going after that Game of Thrones crowd. So I wouldn't be surprised if we ended up watching the show.
A lot of people keep comparing it to Game of Thrones. It feels very different than Game of Thrones to me. I mean, it's violent, but the political intrigue isn't quite as dense as a Game of Thrones, and the sexuality isn't nearly as front and center as it is in Game of Thrones for sure. But
it reminds me of Xena, Warrior Princess.
That's actually a good comparison. Maybe not quite as silly.
No, Xena on a proper budget, I guess you could say.
Yeah,
but that's like the tone. Not super self-serious. Definitely sexuality is there, but it's not the focal point like Game of Thrones. And I don't know, it's just got that tone of like things are dire, but we are not here to like talk about how sad everything is for an hour. Yeah.
See, I like that in Game of Thrones, but it's also fun because I did play Witcher 3. I played a little bit of Witcher 2, and I played
love Witcher 2.
I liked it better when they fixed the controls. About halfway through the game cycle, they kind of fixed some stuff, but it's been a long time. But it's really fun watching the TV series and recognizing characters that you played as or with or alongside in the game, and seeing them and actually getting to see their backstory, because the series is supposed to be based on the books more than it is the games.
I take umbrage with this because it looks, sounds, and acts like the game.
Yeah.
Was there a visual for Geralt before the games came out? Was there artwork that was consistent with how he looked, or is it just because I agree on the outside, the show looks exactly like what I know the game to look like. So was there something else that they could have been pulling from, or is it just that it looks like the game series?
Or is he that descriptive when he describes Geralt in the books?
But even the music sounds like they went after the same kind of style as the game.
Yeah.
And the Nilfgaardian armor, his Geralt's armor looks the exact same. Henry Cavill's voice is so clearly inspired by Doug Cockle's voice from the game.
Yeah.
There's no, I'm sure the author will take all the credit for everything, as he is wont to do historically, but it's pretty clear where they got all of their inspiration from.
I do love that Henry Cavill has pulled off a response that that Geralt is known for. Just Or what's the
He's
other
real.
one? He's got like two famous things that he just says multiple times in that series.
Well, the other one's not clean enough for this podcast.
Oh, is that what it is? Yeah. I also, what else is it? Oh, they've made a mod for Witcher 3 on PC that actually has Henry Cavill's face playing Geralt instead, which is just pretty brilliant. But
Superman himself. Anyway, so the marketing on Xbox One's got to bring it.
Yeah, that was a weird way we got onto that.
Well, he was the marketing guy for Netflix. I assume he had marketing input on that show.
Probably.
So you think about how successful that show is. It was the biggest show of last year or whatever. This guy, he knows what he's doing.
And they said that show has now surpassed Stranger Things as the most watched show on Netflix.
Right.
Which blows my mind. I would have assumed Stranger Things was way more popular than The Witcher.
It beat Mandalorian for
Yeah.
social media analytics or whatever last year.
Mhm.
That's crazy.
That's really crazy.
It's that friggin' song, man.
You laugh, but I think that has something to do with it.
I think it does. Yeah, it's the baby Yoda of The Witcher. Like, it's just this thing you can't escape from.
It really. Have you heard the metal version yet?
Yes, yeah.
Oh, it's so good. I know you're not a big metal head, but that version is so fantastic. Well, let's go ahead and move on to the next story. And actually, Jeff brought this into the table, and it seems fitting considering we were just talking about Xbox and the Game Pass and PS Now and all that. But developers are pretty divided on how these subscription services will affect game values. And there was a bunch of other findings from the GDC State of the Industry report. Basically, Jeff, why don't I let you explain this one? Because you actually, like I said, brought this one and added it to the show.
Sure. So we've got, when is GDC? It's in March, I think.
Okay.
So heading into GDC, the organization that runs the convention, the Game Developers Conference, will survey all of the members that are a part of it. And it's just about everybody. We're talking 4,000 different developers that were a part of this survey. And each outlet gets kind of one vote, one response. So they vote as a developer or as a studio. And the report has been getting different snippets published every few days. That was where we saw, I think you covered it a week or two ago, the point that 10% of all developers are currently working on next gen games or something like that. So this week they just put out the survey that shows how subscription services are being viewed from developers. And so across these 4,000 developers, a quarter of them believe that subscription services like Xbox Game Pass or EA Access or so forth will end up devaluing games in the long run. But then another quarter of them aren't worried at all. And then 28% of them said maybe it will, maybe it won't. And 18% said they didn't know. So you basically got half of everybody not really having input, but then kind of an even split of those who say subscription services will devalue their games and another quarter that think that it's going to make them better in the long run. And to that end, a couple of other interesting tidbits. 8% of the developers that were surveyed said they are currently building a game specifically for the subscription models like Apple Arcade or Xbox Game Pass. And that's something that's brand new to this generation of game development, right? I don't think we've ever seen, other than the Sega Channel back in 1993 getting a Mega Man exclusive that we just got on the Classic, but we've never seen developers go into something saying, we're going to build a game with the idea that everybody that wants to play it is going to have access to it.
It's kind of crazy to think that you go into a development cycle not worrying about the sales of it. You just know that you're going to get this one solid paycheck. You don't care about the sales numbers anymore. That's got to be kind of a crazy path to take, because you'll never know if it would have been successful, because you can't go back in time and try to sell it independently and measure those copies, because that's totally skewed based on if it's available on Game Pass, right?
But you could do something like look at Rocket League, for example. That game on release day came on PlayStation Plus. And I think a lot of people had the same question of, wow, look, there's 2 million people playing Rocket League. What if? But then we saw they started adding a ton of DLC that's all cosmetic, People seemed to love it. And then they started publishing the game on other platforms where they had to pay for it. And now I think it's back on Xbox Game Pass. So I think we've seen there can be success in the model and an ability to get additional revenue off of what you're told is going to be that flat check, I guess.
Right. You gotta also keep in mind too that Rocket League is a $20 game versus, games that come first day and date for Xbox Game Pass are $60 titles usually.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So you got that going for you too. But Zach, what do you think?
Well, it sounds like the developers got about as much of a clue as we do.
Yeah.
Right.
Nobody knows how these chips are going to fall, which is very interesting.
It really is. But, at the same time, it's hard because this past week, and Jeff, I know you can attest to this because you're one of the few people I know that absolutely unabashedly adore Children of Morta as much as I do.
Yes.
That game finally came on Game Pass this past week. And some people in our community, after I had talked it up like crazy, went out and bought the game. Then the game's on Game Pass. So I worry that this is actually going to devalue some of these indie titles more so because gamers are going to say, well, if I just wait, I might get it for free on Game Pass here in the next couple months. And if not, it'll be cheaper anyway. So why would I buy an indie game at launch?
Well, I think that's the same mentality as PlayStation Plus or games with gold. Mm-hmm. You can always wait, or even you take something like Shadow the Tomb Raider, which is $40 a month later or whatever. It's you're always aware that you're taking a chance of paying more by playing early,
right?
But that's what happens. You're excited about something, you take the chance on it. You hear Scott Clark, the gaming outsider, loves the Children of Morta. Like, oh, I can't stand waiting anymore. I got to figure out what this thing's about.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess in that aspect, I don't think it'll skew people to a huge degree.
To that end, shameless plug time. So my podcast, Nindie Nation, is focused exclusively on indie games on the Switch. And as such, I get codes from a couple of publishers, but for the most part, I'm going out there and I'm buying a game or two almost every week so that I have stuff to talk about. And I'm buying things that I'm interested in, of course. But over the last 6 months, I have seen so many titles. Ape Out, what was the pinball fight? Creature in the Well, Ori and the Blind Forest. So many games that I'm on the verge of buying for the Switch so I can talk about them on the podcast. And then I see that they're already on Game Pass. And I'm getting to that point, Scott, just like you said, where even as someone who, that's my online livelihood, as it were, I'm starting to say, well, this definitely looks like a game that's coming to Game Pass. Maybe I'll hold off if the sale during the launch week or whatever isn't enough for me to bite off on at launch. So I definitely am proof that is happening to at least some extent.
Yeah,
right, you're also in a unique use scenario.
Sure.
For the podcast, right? And I feel like you're looking for you're scouring for games. But the normal person probably sees an Ape Out and goes like, oh, this looks mildly interesting, but they weren't going to pay $20 for it anyway.
Right. Yeah, that's fair. Definitely an outsider use case.
Side note, how's Katana Zero?
Katana Zero is something special. It really is.
I told you, man.
No, I know. Hey, I'm asking for other opinions. I got to play this game.
It is. I think it does a really good job of walking the line between frustrating and exciting and somber. And what's really interesting, you've probably heard that it's got this whole therapy session kind of aspect to it between the levels, and the levels themselves are really one-hit kill, really intense and fast. But if you choose to, for example, skip the therapy sessions and you just want to blow through the action, you get more of that in return, and the game kind of treats you different because of the way you're playing it. And that in itself is kind of fourth wall breaking and is something that really makes it stand out, aside from just having great gameplay and a really unique story. Katana Zero is one of the best on the system, I think.
There you go, man.
Wow. Well, now that he said it, I can maybe I'll try it.
Yeah. I've been telling him he needs to play this game for months now, and he still hasn't picked it up. But now that you said it, he's totally going to buy it. Because that's how.
Well, now I feel like I can't, just so I don't hurt your feelings.
Also, Children of Morta was Jeff's #1 game of 2019 as well.
Sure was.
Really?
Yep.
Wow, that's very interesting.
Yeah, just saying.
Is it because it had a story, or do you like roguelikes already?
So I do really like roguelikes. And
okay, what if someone were to say hate roguelikes?
I think, and I wrote the review for Children of Morta at the Nintendo Village, which is kind of the group of creators that Nindie Nation was born out of. So, I've got a written review and a video review there. But one of the things that I said in the review is exactly that. I think Children of Morta is the game if you hate roguelikes. If there's going to be a game that's going to change your mind, it's either Dead Cells or Children of Morta.
Okay. Well, I hated Dead Cells, so.
Well, you know what? Might not like
what? I didn't hate it. It was okay, but it didn't give me enough of a hook to keep playing. But from my understanding, there's at least some narrative here, which is what I need.
There's an incredible narrative in Children of Morta, and the score, the soundtrack is wonderful. One of my biggest challenges when I was playing the game is I played so much of it handheld on the Switch, and then I played it once on my TV, and my mind was blown just how good it sounded and how great it looked on the TV. And so from that point, I was always conflicted, like, I've got to play this game on the TV so I can take it all in. And so I've played it all the way through on the Switch. I played it all the way through on the xCloud preview, and now I'm nearing the 1,000 achievement points on Game Pass since it just came out last month. I mean, I can't get enough of that game.
Yeah, the grind is actually very enjoyable, and it never feels too grindy. There's a couple times I went back and redid a level, but it always feels rewarding. You never feel like you have a run that just gives you just a handful of gold. It always feels like you make some progress every time, which feels good.
Okay,
so,
I feel like I gotta play this game.
Yeah, and it's on Game Pass, which I know you have. So
it's true, I do.
I'm gonna need some of the co-op achievements.
I am too, man.
Yeah,
we should knock that out together.
Yes, I agree.
I mean, I think the only one is to complete a dungeon in co-op. Isn't that the only one? It's
complete one dungeon in co-op and then revive one of your team members 5 times in a dungeon.
Well, that should be easy.
Oh yeah, it's easy peasy.
Yeah, simple.
You guys, who wants to play co-op of the Green Lantern movie tie-in game so I can get that platinum? You want to do that? Nobody?
What platform was that on? I can't even remember when that movie came out.
PS3 and 360. It's sad because Green Lantern's my favorite thing in the whole wide world, and I always wanted to get that platinum just for that, but I have found 0 people in my life who are willing to play through that game co-op.
Now, is it even online anymore? Are the servers online?
No, I'm pretty sure you'd have to do local at this point. But it's so sad that I tried to do it where I played both characters at once. And I just felt so sad at myself that I couldn't do it for more than like an hour.
You couldn't find a single person to sit on the couch for you.
I know, it's just like a God of War style beat 'em up. It's not offensively bad. It's pretty decent.
I think a lot of people were turned off by the movie.
Yeah, it's not a great movie.
And yeah.
I
got one other story to talk about. It's barely a story, but they showed a trailer today for Patapon 2 Remastered, which is going to be releasing on January 30th. And Jeff, I think you've played these games. I have not. And can you explain to me how these works? Because it just looks like Parappa the Rapper, but with what was that? What was that Wii game with the little minion guys running around?
Rhythm Heaven?
No, not Rhythm. It wasn't a Rhythm
World of
Goo. No, the one Pikmin.
Oh,
it reminds me of Pikmin.
That's a GameCube game, son.
Well, Pikmin 3 was on Wii U, wasn't it?
Yeah, no, it's just
So Patapon, you are moving a bunch of those little black figurines that you see in the images. You're moving them from the left side of the screen to the right side of the screen. It's almost a little bit like Lemmings in that way.
Okay.
You're kind of in control of the whole group of them, and where Patapon comes from is they chant, and they chant is how they decide who's in the lead of the group, or when they attack, or when they move forward, or when they, halt and stay still in place. And so in the example of Patapon, you're pushing X then circle, where X, or cross, cross makes you say pata, and then circle makes you say pawn. And the game basically gives you kind of a Simon Says of pata, 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 pawn, and then it's your turn to do it. And as you get deeper in the game, you can freestyle a little bit as long as it's within rhythm. And then what the sequel adds is a bunch of RPG mechanics, and it immediately just cranks the replay value up to 100. I didn't buy the first Patapon remaster because I knew that the second one would come out. And like I feel like a lot of games, if there's a trilogy, usually the second one is better than the third, or is at least more notable if you're going to revisit. So I'm getting it when it comes out. What is it, Thursday that it comes out? Yeah. So I'm all about it. And I think if you like, if you're interested in unique indie type games, or if you're a fan of rhythm games, get Patapon 2, because you'll have a blast with it.
I love rhythm games.
Oh, you got to be all over it.
I remember people talking about it back when I used to frequent the Rotten Tomatoes forums. Like, people were just super amped about that game, and I never got around to it. So, yeah. So Thursday, by the time you hear this show, you should be able to download it, if not today, tomorrow at the latest. So
I've always wanted to play those games, so this is cool.
I agree. I may have to play that one. It looked like it was like 30 levels or something like that. So is that all you do? Is just rhythm? There's no like I don't know, tower defense mechanics or anything like that. It's just straight up just mash the buttons in order.
No, actually, the tower defense is a big part of it, or rather tower offense, I would say. You do have to do things like, essentially, every level you're trying to push your group forward. And so there's a bunch of like rock, paper, scissors mechanics. Oh, here's this guy that's made out of this material, so we've got to use the axe or the archers or the swordsmen at the front of the ranks. And so it's only simple where you're marching forward and attacking for like the first 2 levels. And then it starts getting a lot deeper and continues to build, where at the end of the game, you're kind of performing a rock concert with your controller. It gets very intense and really fun. And you will be saying for weeks afterwards, you'll be walking around and you'll just hear pata, 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 pawn constantly.
I may have to play this game.
You gotta. It's fun.
It sounds good for me. All right, well, that's going to do it for the news. Before we head over to our topic for the week, I want to give a shout out to our Patreon page and all the people that have been supporting the Gaming Outsider. We really do appreciate your patronage. We've got a brand new episode that should be available any day now. We weren't sure whether to classify it as a Retro Outsider episode or a Break the Seal episode, because we played a bunch of NES games that were based on TV shows back in the 80s and 90s, actually even before the 80s. The games include Double Dare, American Gladiators, Funhouse, and my personal favorite, The Lone Ranger. This was a lot of fun. We actually sat down with Berensmeyer and Christina, our former producer, who had never played any of these games, and she despised The Lone Ranger. And she's wrong. The game is a American treasure, and everybody should play it. But if you want to check that out, be sure to head over to our Patreon page, which can be found at patreon.com/thegocast. $3 a month will give you access to all of our bonus content, including the one I just mentioned, as well as a special VR episode we're going to have coming up here in the near future with special guest Spencer Cushing, who played some VR games with us recently as well. Plus, you get everything from the past, too. Everything we've ever recorded you can check out. So please check out patreon.com/thegocast. And with that, let's go ahead and jump into our From the Outside In topic. There has been a lot of talk about the upcoming console generation between the Xbox Series X, the PS5, and whatever Nintendo is doing out there on their own. So this week, we're going to talk about what we'd like to see from the next generation of hardware. I thought we'd also discuss what it would take for us to switch to our away from our preferred console of choice. Now, I'm more of an Xbox guy. Zach is more of a Sony guy. I think it might be safe to say that Jeff is a Nintendo guy, considering he does a Nintendo podcast. But what would it take for you guys to switch from your preferred platform to another?
So I was out looking on the Facebook page and in the Discord chat and such. So yeah, you're right, Scott. I am a Nintendo. I am a Nintendo fanboy through and through. So just like Nintendo competes differently than the other consoles, I'm going to love Nintendo no matter what. And they've made some dumb decisions this generation, and I'm going to be right here to justify them. So I kind of take that out of the equation. I was really I really aligned with David Waller, who said he'd like to see the PlayStation fix their menu system as they're so slow compared to anything on Xbox, and I 100% agree. I bought a PS4 Pro, and one of the things I was most excited about was to see that interface move faster, and nope, it's still just so sluggish. And it is a good organization, but it's so slow, and the store is just so laggy. And come on, guys, I'm spending $400, $500 on this box. If I hear or I see a video of the interface being that slow and sluggish again, it's going to turn me away from PlayStation this time around, because while I have complaints about the Xbox ecosystem, it's nice and snappy.
Wow, that's so... I think they're both terrible. I think they're both so unnecessary, especially the storefronts are so slow and sluggish.
Yeah,
and it feels like you're always moving faster than the store can keep up with you.
So what's an online ecosystem that you think does it right from like any kind of technology or whatever?
Oh my, I mean, I guess Steam. I don't really know. Like, I like the presentation of the PlayStation Store. I just wish you could keep up with what you want to do, and I really like the dashboard on PlayStation as well. I think the Xbox One. I think this comes down to which one you use more usually. But like, to me, the Xbox One is a bit more cumbersome in its layout. Although
I will agree, and I'm an Xbox guy. I like the fact that on PlayStation the games are just right there. As soon as you boot it up, the games that you want to play are like right there. Now you've got that on Xbox, but it's like the last 4 games maybe, and you have to like hit the menu button, go to My Games and Apps to see your list of available games to download. Whereas PlayStation is just right there. But for me, on PlayStation, if I want to do anything outside of the games that I want to play, like the store or the settings, there is so many menu options. It takes forever to find the one that I want. And granted, if I did it a lot, it would probably be easy to find. But you don't want to be digging in the menus a lot, right?
And why in the world are we still syncing our trophies in 2020?
Yeah, no kidding.
What is that about? That's bizarre.
It takes like a half an hour too. I swear.
It does. No, if you're syncing a PlayStation 3 trophy, it does take forever. But PS4 is quick now. It just doesn't make sense that you have to activate it or have PlayStation Plus to do it automatically for you.
Right.
Like, come on, you get the achievement in Xbox, it's there.
I need to switch my settings on my PS4 just to do the updates automatically, because I play Xbox mostly. So when I get to a PS4 game, I haven't had the box on in a while, and I got to do these updates, and I swear it's like 20 minutes before I can play something. So,
you know, before I bought the PS4 on launch day, and then I waited until Sunset Overdrive released for buying the Xbox One. Mm-hmm. And I played the mess out of Sunset Overdrive. I like Forza Horizon. I played Quantum Break. But through like 2018, that was just about it. And I didn't like the navigation, and I still don't really like the navigation of the Xbox OS. I agree that it's a mess. But every time I would boot up my Xbox, not only would I have all these firmware changes and all these updates, but the entire OS would change. So maybe if one thing, next generation, can we just pick something Microsoft and stick with it?
They've never been able to do that.
No.
Remember when they got rid of the blades?
Oh, the blades were so good.
That was devastating.
Yeah, I like the blades. I think everybody liked the blades.
Yeah. Yes.
Did anybody else, am I the only one that would just sit there and hit the bumper buttons back and forth and just go choo 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 choo?
It's very satisfying.
Yeah. I can still hear the sound. I can't replicate it, but I can hear it.
Yep.
I can hear it as well too.
Yeah.
So it's a little lighter.
Will there's a lot of rumors that the next generation we're going to have microphones in the controller, and we're going to have yet another assistant type device like a Google or an Amazon or whatever. will you guys be using those, you think? Just to say...
to make purchases or whatever?
Yeah, like PlayStation, change my online status to idle or whatever. Would you use those things?
You know, when the Kinect one came out, I used to like talk to my Xbox all the time and say Xbox on, and I thought it was cool, and I'm like, I'm going to use this. And then I never did.
Right.
I just never did it. Even like when I would watch a movie or something, Xbox pause. And I did that for about a month if I watched a movie down here, but now with smart TVs, everything is like right on that remote, and I just do that. I've got an Alexa in my house, and I hardly ever use it. So I never talk to this stuff at all.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to change your mind.
No. And I know it's not going to change Zach's mind because he doesn't even have that stuff.
Well, I have an Alexa.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Oh, I figured you were anti.
Wow, why, man? Alexa was super cool for 2 weeks or so.
And I use it in my classroom, believe it or not.
Oh, yeah.
If I'm teaching a science lesson and I don't know a question or something, I'll just say, let's ask Alexa and find out and see if she knows.
Yeah, that was super fun. And then my roommate had a Google Home, which seemed to have much better access to information.
Oh, really?
I thought so. I mean, Alexa's fun, but she is a great Bluetooth speaker now.
Yeah. We have a Google Home in the kitchen that, we use for a kitchen timer more than anything else.
Right.
Okay,
it's
Google,
like
set a timer for 4 minutes.
That's basically what they turn into, is the most expensive alarm clocks in the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a photo album too.
Photo album, yeah.
No, I would use it for probably about a week. It's just, first of all, I don't really like talking to people throughout my days. So I don't really want to come home. I don't really want to come home and talk to my controller.
Right.
I just want to click the button to make. I just want to have Batman punch the people when I press a button. I don't need to go through a whole conversation to get there.
PlayStation, make Batman punch the Joker.
No, well, that would have a novelty, I guess, but much like Arkham VR, it would be 20 minutes later.
Yeah,
and I'm like, this is run out. So
I
don't know.
It was great.
It's a neat idea.
What do you guys think about having to navigate Xbox Game Pass currently? Do you like the way that that's built out, or if you've played with PlayStation Now?
What do you mean, like how I navigate PlayStation?
Well, you've got this siloed area on both ecosystems where here's this huge 100 titles that you can pick from, and they've got a couple of different filters and such, but there's a really good chance that these subscription services are going to be central to the next generation of systems, right? So,
right.
Do you think either of those platforms do a good job of navigating those now, or is that something that needs to get better?
I feel like if you subscribe, it should be more front and center on Xbox. Like you should have, when you in Xbox One, when you go to My Games and Apps, you've got your games that are installed and games that are ready to download. I think there should be a third option outside of just games that are ready to install that are purchased and games that are ready to install from Game Pass. You know what I mean? And that should be up front and center so that people can see, oh, I can go play this game. I didn't even know I could go play that game.
I agree.
Yeah, I think it'd be really neat if even on the dashboard of both these systems, when you boot them up, if you're subscribed, that they just I
want to see what's new.
Yeah, like on your games thing, like they just have, one of the tiles on Xbox One is just a randomly selected Game Pass game.
Yeah, that's a really good idea.
That's fun. I like that.
Yeah, I think that'd be really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Just something small like that would even, like I found out Split Second was on PlayStation Now. I mean, that was a fun discovery because that game's awesome.
Yeah, that's the one that's like Mario Kart. No.
That's Blur.
Blur is.
But they both came out in like the same month or whatever.
Yeah, I get those two mixed up.
Split Second is the one where you could destroy the racetrack and make new racetracks.
There's I remember like a plane that, or a track that took place on like an airport, and there was an airplane that exploded, and you had to drive up the wing or something like that.
It's really cool. Yeah, on the first lap, you can explode the airport tower, which changes the course and makes you go on the runway. And then on the second lap, there's a crashing plane because they don't have airport control guiding them in, so you have to dodge a crashing plane on the runway.
That's awesome.
It's so good.
We
So
need
good.
one of those.
That's never going to happen.
No, it's not.
Published by Disney. So they do not make games no more.
Anyway, any other things that would get you to switch over there, Jeff?
I think we definitely need a better OS. I think subscriptions are going to be really important. So I think those kind of go part and parcel with each other. You know, having access to a bunch of games, being able to navigate through them and get to them easily. I think that's probably the biggest part of it for me.
Okay. Zach, how about you?
You know, honestly, I mean, I feel like every week I'm getting closer to wanting to jump on board the next Xbox.
Uh-huh.
Just because they are nicer, and Phil Spencer seems like a cool dude, and they don't seem up their butt, which is the cycle. You know, I was a 360 guy.
Right.
For the majority of that console life cycle, and then guess what? Like, they made me so angry that I went for the PlayStation 4. Simple as that. And at this point, I'm so deep into the PlayStation ecosystem, especially with trophies, that it feels like it would be hard to switch. But if Xbox keeps up this rhetoric and they nab some exclusives that are worth it, I would jump ship.
I'll tell you what, if I was the same boat, I was all 360, and then like after Uncharted 2, I started veering into the PS3. So I started this generation with the PS4, and over time I've been kind of inching my way towards Xbox more, especially with Game Pass. And I built a gaming PC for the first time since 2002, a few months ago. So that's been great having all those Game Pass PC games. But there's one thing that would definitely make me go all in on Xbox on day one, and that is if that rumor of the Playground Games Fable, if that's real, day one, that's a system seller for me.
Really? Fable?
Yeah, man. You can't tell me you
Fable
didn't.
too, but
Oh, yeah, one over the other. Yeah. Now, if I had to choose between like Spider-Man 2 or Fable, I think it'd just end up being a really expensive month.
Right. Yeah. As I say, if you want to go down the rumor rabbit hole, the idea that Microsoft is trying to court some kind of DC exclusive game to compete against Spider-Man, I would be done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would jump ship immediately.
Any character in specific that would?
I mean, Scott, I feel like I'm so deep down this DC Comics rabbit hole, it probably wouldn't matter.
So any character.
I feel like pretty
DC.
like give me a Wonder Woman exclusive or Superman, I'd be there.
I would play the crap out of a Wonder Woman game. That sounds super fun to me.
Yeah, I feel like she's the most obvious runner, the next up. Outside of Green Lantern, of course. But I want to go to a comment from Jer45 here. I would have to say that crazy amount of new IPs that I want to play to jump off of the Sony boat. But last gen, I was a 360 guy until Don Matrick talked me right over to the PS4. I really hope Xbox gives me a reason to jump ship. I'll go where the games are.
Yeah, he makes a good point. Sony's been having the exclusives this generation for sure.
There's really no competition there.
Yeah.
And I think it's really bitten Xbox in the butt. And I think they learned from their mistake, and I think that's why they bought those half dozen game studios.
I'll bring back Scalebound. I hope that's an Xbox Series X. I want to see what that game was going to be.
See, that was a thing, right? They had that, and they had the Phantom Dust remake that looked really promising as well, and they threw in the towel on both of those.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, they did that a few times. I don't know what's going on. But Jared's comment about Don Matrick talking you right into the PS4 clearly happened on a pretty large scale.
Mm-hmm.
It did. The comment about, we have an offline console. It's called the Xbox 360.
Right, and then the head of Xbox Live at the time saying, states in the middle of the country, who cares about them anyway? There's a reason they're the flyover states. Yeah, all that. They could not have done a worse job. And speaking firsthand experience, somebody who worked at GameStop during these console launches, like we never once sold out of Xbox Ones. Huh. We did sell at PS4s, and people come in, be like, "Hey, I want the PS4." Like, well, we're sold out. We do have an Xbox One. I'm like, no, I'll wait.
I'm good.
Yeah, I will wait it out. That's terrible.
Yeah. So Phil Spencer's had a lot of work on his hands to right that wrong.
And look at how far they've come in terms of, the mind share of the gamer.
Yeah.
They're so consumer friendly, almost to a fault right now, by putting their exclusives day and date on Game Pass.
And they're all about choice. I can play Children of Morta on my Google Pixel phone sitting in a hotel a state away. And when I get home, I can turn on my Xbox One X and my save is right there ready to go. And if I want to jump over and play it with a mouse and keyboard on my PC, it's there. And guess what? That game didn't cost me anything other than my subscription. That's amazing.
Right. That's a big thing for me with this generation is the ability to play things anywhere. Now, I unfortunately have not been able to get on the xCloud bandwagon like you have, Jeff, because I have an iOS phone, and I know how you feel about iOS phones. We won't go into that, but I prefer my iOS phone, and unfortunately, that's not available on xCloud. And there's no word if that is going to be available on xCloud. That might get me to switch.
It surely will eventually. 100%. Yeah.
So,
I'll tell you what. I have not touched Google Stadia, but what Microsoft does with xCloud, like I said, I've played it on my Pixel 2, which is like a 2.5-year-old phone, and I've played a ton of xCloud on a 2015 10-inch Samsung tablet. Like, it's not a flagship device or anything. It was something that was just, bought when it was on a $80 sale or something.
Right.
And it's almost flawless. And it works on the worst Wi-Fi. And I don't know how that compares to Stadia, but Stadia is already done for. Like, they won this cloud gaming. xCloud made me believe that there is absolutely a future for this.
It cracks me up that Microsoft is doing what Stadia promised.
Right?
Like, because I drank the Kool-Aid when Stadia launched. I pre-ordered one, wound up canceling it. But nobody is talking about Stadia except for one podcast that I listened to. The guy really likes it because he liked Darksiders Genesis, I think. But
yeah. Hey, look, man, I'm excited for that game coming to PS4.
I was going to say, I am perfectly fine waiting for that game to come to console to play it. Not in a rush. So, anything else, Zach?
Yeah, well, Sai Quinones cuts to the core of the matter, and I think we can all agree. Bring back the option to order pizza from a console. Come on, Sony, just add a Grubhub app. Where are the food apps on these consoles? What's this is about?
Yeah.
I mean, is it that hard to just grab your phone and use that app? I think. What
Scott, is it that hard to boot up Netflix on your phone? I mean, come on, Scott. Now you're
it seems like it's easier to do it on my phone. I can enter my. I get
Scott. We live in a world where we're just talking about talking to our PlayStation controller to start the game because we're too lazy to press the cross button.
But remember, before we had like a Pizza Hut app on our phone, and Xbox 360 did have a order a pizza right here on this app on your
wasn't it
console.
It Domino's or was it Pizza Hut?
I remember a Pizza Hut one for sure because I did it once.
Did they have Avatar? Awesome. Did they have Avatar items as well?
I don't remember Avatar.
I could have swore that there's like an Avatar item for that app.
I want the Noid.
The Noid from Domino's. Remember the Noid game on NES back in the day?
Oh yeah,
had a yo-yo for some reason.
Only 90s kids will remember.
Oh boy.
Oh man, the game was pretty awful, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's a Domino's game.
But I mean, if you're gonna put in a food app, something like Grubhub or DoorDash, just makes sense.
Right, you can save an order from your favorite restaurant. You just press the Y button over the icon, and it'll order it right away.
Yeah, give Microsoft like a 5% cut of it.
Genius.
And they'll always forget your drink.
I've never had that issue.
Really? What? It's like a 60-40 shot. On the side of not getting the drink for me.
Really? I've never not gotten a drink.
Especially at Five Guys, it seems like they just do not care if they're picking up Five Guys.
Well, it's because they give you like 5 pounds of French fries, so they just assume that if you forget the drink, then they make up for it with fries.
I can't
driver's
wash down.
Pissed at you because so much grease has gotten all over their car from those bags of fries.
I cannot wash down the farm worth of potatoes I've just eaten unless I have an ice cold soda.
Making me thirsty now.
I want to order Five Guys now.
I got a comment from Samuel Smith that I thought kind of struck home with me. He said, I'm just a month away from jumping over to PC glory, and I'm considering just skipping out on the Xbox Series X since my PC is going to be a beast, and being that a lot of games will be on PC with Game Pass, it really doesn't seem to make much sense to get their next-gen console. That only leaves me with needing a PS5 for their exclusives and possibly third-party stuff that doesn't come to PC. So PS5 wins next-gen for me on the console end.
Traitor!
Because he is going to go to PS5 or
he's going to go to PC.
Well, here's the thing: if everything that you can play on Xbox is on PC, why not just put your money into a PC that's going to do it anyway? The thing for me is that I want to be able to hook up my PC easily to my console. You know what I mean? If I could have some kind of switch set up where I have my PC set up and I can just switch it back and forth between my TV to my station here at my desk I'm working, and I can just go back and forth, that would be perfect for me.
You can do that with the Xbox now.
Can you?
Yeah. I don't know if it works on a Mac. I built a PC, or I bought a gaming PC like 9 months ago, and it's way too confusing. There's like 3 different Microsoft/Xbox apps for Windows. But one of them is just an Xbox app, and it's where you can browse Game Pass and all that. And it has in-home console streaming on it. And it's like, I played a lot of Outer Worlds that way, because I'd just be sitting at my computer desk with like a video podcast on my laptop, and Outer Worlds just sitting there, and I'd, use my Xbox controller on it. And then if I wanted to go over to the 4K TV, obviously you lose a little bit in the quality, but yeah, I mean, for Outer Worlds, after like hour 20, I was like, all right, I know what this game looks like. So it didn't bother me as much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's the key for me is I want to be able to switch from one place to another as easily as possible. I mean, I'm a tech guy, and I still want the convenience of just ease. I don't want to have to, like you said, 3 different apps or whatever I got to go through. I don't want to do that. I want to make it as simple as possible. And Nate Lucas had something to add on there too. He said, would be cool to see consoles start bridging the gap between console and PC, something I can play games on, but properly browse the web and use a word processor on. Proper mouse and keyboard utilization, all at the same price point that consoles release at. If you want to build your own system, cool. Sell the console operating system and sell proprietary locked disk drives.
That'd be cool.
That's what I'm talking about. Just give me the console OS and then the drives, and I'm all set. And then I can flip back and forth between using it as a PC or a laptop and using it as a console on my TV. That's what I want.
That would be really cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And if they did that on PlayStation, that could get me to switch over. The problem is, like what Zach said, is I am so built into the achievement zeitgeist with the Xbox. Starting all over with trophies would just be a nightmare for me. But going to PC would fix that, because I don't have to worry about, if I can earn the achievements on PC or on Xbox, and still they go to the same place.
I love trophies.
Ba-ting.
See, I like the trophies too. I just like this. The sound of the Xbox rare achievement is awesome.
It's almost like a mini THX sound file.
Yep.
Right. Well, they introduced that in the Xbox One era, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's halfway through the cycle, I think, they did that. And it means nothing.
I mean, continue, sorry.
It just means you're like in the top 10% of people that got that achievement. That's it.
Yeah. I remember hearing that the first time when I bought Rise of the Tomb Raider, because I bought my Xbox One when they announced that was going to be an exclusive. So you won, Microsoft. Nice. And I remember getting that sound effect for the first time. I was like, "Oh, that's cool." I don't remember this on the 360.
Oh yeah,
and I was definitely there when it was a big deal to get achievements on that 360.
There's something that would be nice. Come on, Nintendo, get with the program. Give me some achievements.
I'm so conflicted about this, and I'm going to tell you why real quick. In Breath of the Wild, especially, I always, like, every time I found I was like 100 hours into the game and I found a stable, I'm like, oh, finally, I found the last stable. And then I'll play another 15 hours and lo and behold, the freaking stable shows up. And I'm like, oh, I thought I had them all. And that discovery only happened because there were no achievements. Because there would definitely be an achievement for find all stables.
Right.
So I kind of like that Nintendo is my last bastion of no achievements. However, boy, would it have been great to have achievements as I beat Breath of the Wild, so I had a reason to jump back in that world after the worst ending in gaming history.
Yep.
That's a really good point.
Would you have the platinum in Breath of the Wild?
I think so.
Nice.
I think 150 plus hours in that game.
Nice.
I love that game until the end.
Good one.
So you did most of that stuff before you played the final boss, right?
Yes.
And then didn't go back to it?
I could not do it. When Zelda doesn't say a word to you, that's very infuriating.
Yeah. Well, I think we'll get more from her in Breath of the Wild too.
Yeah. Well,
considering she's a playable character.
When my heart was broken, Scott, there was no Breath of the Wild 2. Thank you.
Well, there will be.
Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
Anything else you guys would like to see in the coming generation, either on your preferred platform or otherwise?
Something this is going to be a bad thing to say as my first appearance in your podcast, but so one thing that I don't want to see, or maybe I want to see something other than this, is I'm getting really tired of, I'm got to get ready for the Sony hate. I'm getting really tired of almost every big tentpole Sony game being the disheveled older man that's on a narrative journey to exact revenge for a long lost love. And it's like, I mean, unless you're talking like Spider-Man or Horizon, that's like all of the games. And I just want a little bit more variety, because Sony is really going hard, and not only just, that kind of trite comment, but they're going really hard into games that are depressing and gritty and all of that. And I'm not really all about that anymore. And I know a lot of people are, and I know that those games sell tens of millions of copies, but I would like to see Sony get back to the weird Sony that made Patapon, for example. The PS3 era, Patapon and Puppeteer, and, when Little Big Planet was a much bigger thing. And maybe we'll see some of that from Dreams, but who knows? I would like to see them get a little more diverse with the types of experiences that are out there, because I really think they've nailed the craft of making that narrative third-person action adventure, but that's not really what I'm all about anymore.
I'll even take it one step further. I'm getting really sick of every Sony exclusive is a third-person action adventure open world game.
Yep.
That's the only thing. That's the only thing they're doing right now. Horizon, God of War, Spider-Man, Last of Us Part 2. They're saying Ghost of Tsushima, and they're predominantly set in America too. And it's just. It is a little bit of one flavor. Look, I love cookies and cream ice cream. If I ate every single dessert, I'm going to get sick of it.
Yep. And you've got different flavors of it. Death Stranding is definitely different than Spider-Man, which is definitely different than The Last of Us. But you're right. At the end of the day, it's a very similar thing. You don't have them nailing a puzzle game or nailing a party game or nailing a driving game. I mean, come on. They let Gran Turismo just hand the crown over to Forza.
Mm-hmm.
When you have
Bring back Katamari Damacy. Remember that game?
Yeah.
They just put out one on Switch last year.
Yeah, now the song's stuck in my head. Thanks, Scott.
You're welcome.
But they have such
not to.
diverse and talented studios, and they have them making the same game.
That is a good point. I never thought about it that way. Third person open world. And I'm trying to think of one that isn't, and I can't. Like Twisted Metal, and that was even PS3 era.
Yeah,
that was like a decade ago.
Yeah. I really can't think of one.
I was going to say, I can't think of one since, I guess, The Order 1886.
That was a third-person shooter. It was very linear.
Right. Yeah, but
Resogun.
There you go. Resogun. Yeah. What's Housemarque up to these days?
Remember, their arcade is dead.
Right. Yeah, they're doing story games now.
Yeah, now they're going to do like a battle royale or something.
Oh, boy. But hey, for me, next gen, I want better AI systems. To me, it is almost inexcusable that only Shadow of Mordor and War, there it is, that those are the only two games that had the Nemesis system this whole console generation.
I think we all expected that to be copied at some point and never did.
How the hell was it not? That's such a cool concept. Like, imagine a Batman game with that, an Arkham game. You know, the lieutenants are, low, like street level gang thugs like Black Mask or Deathstroke or something like that. And it even makes more sense because Batman doesn't kill people, so there's a good reason they would come back and seek revenge.
Right.
Like it builds itself, and it was such a cool system, and I wanted it in other settings.
Order of Owls, man, it's gonna happen.
I hope so, because the Nemesis, the behind the scenes story goes that the Nemesis system was originally for a Batman game. But then
really,
I didn't know that. I mean, that's whoa. I have to look into it with Monolith Productions, but I could have swore that was a story. But then Warner Brothers Montreal made Arkham Origins instead, so they retrofitted it for the Lord of the Rings game.
Interesting.
But yeah, that's really what I want. Better AI systems. I don't care about graphics, and I really don't think gamers do past the first 15 minutes of playing a game either.
I think I tend to agree with you. I think we talk a big talk about, I even talk about like, oh, my 4K TV, I want to play it. Yeah, it looks great on my 4K TV, but I don't notice it after an hour of playing. I really don't.
If the game's great, you're not going to notice.
And it's easy for me to sit here and say, well, I'll go where the really great games are, but I didn't for this past generation. The PS4 clearly had the better exclusives, and I'm still stuck on Xbox One. And that's entirely tied up with achievements and just comfort. I just feel more comfortable on the Xbox One. I know exactly where everything is because I use it more often, which is what they want. They want me to feel comfortable there and not want to switch. So, I don't know. But the ease of accessibility and of playing anywhere I want to is definitely the big thing that would get me to switch. And somebody else, and I apologize for whose name I didn't write this down, but someone said that VR would get them to switch to PlayStation from Xbox One, because Microsoft doesn't really seem to have any plan for any kind of other way to play games other than with a controller. I feel like that is a whole demographic of its own, because I feel like VR is something that people enjoy in small doses, and I'm speaking generally, like in terms of the masses. Like, people think VR is a fun thing to play for a little while, but even me, I have no desire to play Borderlands VR. That is way too much time in a VR headset. I was talking to Nate this weekend about No Man's Sky, which, he's got over 250 hours in that game or something like that. That's too many hours spent in a VR headset for me.
Did he play all of that in VR?
No, he hasn't yet. He's actually never had a VR headset. I'm just saying he's played that game standard for 200 hours, really wants to play it in VR. And that sounds like, I just couldn't be in a headset for that long. Maybe I'm the old guy now. Like, give me my TV and my controller.
As a younger guy, I agree with you.
Okay.
Like, anything longer than an hour, anything longer than an hour, I really start to notice a headset, I guess, is how I would say.
Right.
But that'll get better with time, right?
You're right.
I haven't tried one of those Oculus Quests yet, but I don't hear people really complain about the comfort with those, and I think they really nailed that convenience. So maybe we'll get the PSVR 2 with a wireless headset and, not the Move wands and stuff like that.
The Oasis.
Yes.
That's what we all want, right?
Right.
I mean, let's be real.
An omnidirectional treadmill in every home.
Oh my goodness.
That'd be pretty dope.
By about $2,500 now if you bought them right now.
And I did briefly look it up because you guys made me think I was crazy. And the Nemesis system was for a Batman game.
Nice.
It's supposed to be a tie-in to the Dark Knight trilogy, but Christopher Nolan shot it down.
Interesting. Man, that would have been pretty sweet. And now I want that in order of
Court of Owls.
Whatever it's going to be. Court of Owls, yeah. Did I say Order of Owls?
Yeah, but I was
Court of Owls.
Well, I know, Scott, you don't read the comic books, so I was going to let it slide.
Order of No Quarter.
Thank you for the Shovel Knight reference, yes.
Hey, I played 2 hours of a Shovel Knight game once.
You did. You got to finish that, man. That game is great.
I don't know why I haven't, man, because I came out of it talking. I was like, hey, I really like that.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I'm going to just stop playing it for some reason.
Well, it's not on PlayStation, right? So
yeah, I'm going to go ahead and not play 2 other games that Scott highly recommended this year.
I'll do the Children of Morta.
Yeah.
I actually think you
us.
Yeah. I think you'll actually like Katana Zero better.
Especially now, I didn't know there were therapy sessions, but now I'm like, this game sounds incredible.
Oh, dude, the story in that is a trip.
You atone for your sins in more ways in that game than in any other video game, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Ooh, I like that. That's very OG Nier.
Yeah. Wow, that's a deep cut.
Oh, really? I reference it about every third episode on the show.
That's how you get Zach to play a game. Show some similarity to Nier or Nier Automata, and he will definitely play the game. So thank you for doing that. He finally will play Katana Zero.
Right. I'll come back next week and be like, God, man, it's my game of the year 2019, man. I got to redo my whole list.
Yeah, exactly. Well, before we move on to the games we've been playing, got to say hello to some new Facebook members. If you would like to join the community, head over to facebook.com/groups/thegocast. The new members this week are Reese Morgan and Tony Pekka Kahara. Welcome to the group. Hope you're enjoying the conversations over there. Also, we do have a Discord server with lots of great conversations going on. The link for that is in the show notes of this episode. And we have one new member by the name of Lutfa. And no iTunes reviews this week, but if you'd like to help us out, drop us a review over at iTunes. Let us know what you think of the show. We do take those to heart, and we do make changes based on what you guys like to hear. So let us know, and it helps us get the word out on the show as well. As for written reviews, we've got a written review from Sean Coates. It's his first review for us. He's going to be doing some reviews. He did Terminator Resistance. Also, Zach's review of a game he's going to talk about here in just a second called Coffee Talk is available on the site. You can check out both of those at thegamingoutsider.com, along with all of our other written content. And with that, let's go ahead and talk about the games we've actually been playing. Zach, I know we're in the winter doldrums right now, but is anything good coming out this week?
I don't know, man. You say that there's some games coming out.
Okay.
First up, you got Journey to the Savage Planet, the worst game I played at E3. Coming out of PS4, Xbox One, and PC on January 28th. That's a survival kind of game like No Man's Sky, Subnautica, Minecraft. And it was terribly boring. Kentucky Route Zero finally comes to completion with the TV edition coming to PS4, Xbox One, Switch, and then also the 5th episode comes out on PC, January 28th.
All right.
Pillars of Eternity 2 with Deadfire, an old CRPG style game coming to PS4 and Xbox One, January 28th. Warcraft 3 getting remastered from the ground up on PC, also on January 28th. January 28th, big day. Coffee Talk, which I'll talk about here in a second. It's going on PS4, Xbox One, and PC, January 29th. And then Through the Darkest of Time is about surviving in Nazi Germany, so that'll be a nice uplifting tale. Going to PC, January 30th. Anything catching your eye?
You know, I've been hearing a lot of people talk about Kentucky Route Zero for years, and I've never played it, and I've kind of stayed away from what exactly that game is because I wanted to experience it. And now that it's coming to console, I just want to see what it's all about. So I'm going to say Kentucky Route Zero TV edition, which just means it has all the episodes, including the latest one, right?
Right, and it's also playable on a TV screen now instead of just a computer monitor.
Correct. So, yeah, that one gets my vote.
That is a game, mine as well, and it's a game that's looked interesting for years. But guess what? It wasn't on console.
Yeah.
So, what about you, Jeff?
I mentioned that a couple of times now that I've recently built a PC, was a Mac user for like 18 years or something. Before I built this PC bought it last April of 2019, the last game that I spent a lot of time with on PC was Warcraft 3.
Yeah.
So, little timestamp right there. So I think I got to try that out. I really loved Warcraft 3, and that's when a couple of my buddies in the college dorm room were like, you got to check out this mod. It's called Dota, and we'll show you what it is. It's really cool. Teach you how to play it. It's like an RPG, but inside of Warcraft 3, and saw how that ended up. So Warcraft 3.
What I remember from Warcraft 3 more than anything else, because I played it in college, was, "Are you still touching me?" Or "Job's done." Whenever those little orcs would do those, yeah. I played a little bit of Warcraft 3 too. Had some fun with it, so yeah, I wouldn't mind checking that as well. I just again, I'm a PC guy or a Mac guy, so I probably can't play that on a Mac.
It probably will. I think Blizzard usually makes their games day and date with Mac. I don't know if they still do that, but they used to.
Interesting. I got a decent Mac now, so maybe I can make that happen because that'd be fun to do.
Mm-hmm.
Also, if any of those games you want to check out, we have trailers for those in the show notes for you to check out. And let's go ahead and, Jeff, you're our guest. What games have you been playing this week?
So like I said, with the podcast, always playing a ton. The one that I am the most excited about is Super Crush KO. It is released by Vertex Pop. They are the developer that created the Switch launch title, Graceful Explosion Machine. And that one was a real vibrant, colorful twin-stick shooter, Super Crush KO. The thing that I can liken it to the most is Beautiful Joe, kind of.
Yeah, I could see that from watching the trailer.
Yeah, it's like that, but it's not a narrative adventure. It's like 16 or 20 different levels that you're just score chasing. You can play the whole thing in about an hour and a half, 2 hours, but then there's just awesome score chasing and good leaderboards. And it's just, you shoot, you punch, you kick, you jump, you double jump, you dash, just how can you balance all those things to make the biggest combo possible? And it's just a blast. I'm having so much fun with it.
Super Crush KO. I had not heard of it until you brought this up, and looks like a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Cool.
I've also been playing SuperMash, which is on the PC right now, but was unveiled at Nintendo's Indie World presentation back in, January or December?
Mm-hmm.
And it's the game that you... it's so hard to explain. You find a classic video game console that's apparently from another world, and you take two different video game genres, so say JRPG and a shmup, and you put them both into this console, and it spits out a procedurally generated game in an 8 or 16-bit style that is a mashup of two different genres.
Oh, that sounds awesome.
It's really cool. The general premise is that you and your two best friends work at a video game store, and people come in and they say, I really want a challenging shooter that has a deep story to it. And you're like, okay, well, let's do a first-person shooter mixed with an RPG, and let's make it really hard, because you can set how hard the games are and how long they are. Usually they're 5 to 20 minutes long. And then you go into the game and they'll be glitched, and so all kinds of random things happen, and every attempt at any game is completely randomized. So it's goofy. Like, you can't go into it expecting something serious and polished. It's very goofy, but it's something different every time you play it. It's fun. And
it looks like you could actually, I remember grabbing a couple different cartridges, it looks like, and you put them together and smash them into a console or something like that. So you got that fun little aesthetic of taking the different cartridges and put them together, yeah? Or did I imagine
100%. That? No, it's totally built for someone who is fond of the Super Nintendo or the N64. 100%, yeah. And those are the types of people that are working in the game shop, and so it's definitely built for 90s kids.
Just like Sonic and Knuckles.
Yeah.
Just have that cartridge on there.
The last game that I've been playing is Squidlit. It's a $2 game on the Switch.
It looks like a Game Boy thing.
It is 100% a Game Boy thing. The developers, who are called Squidlit Lab, it's 3 guys, made a game that would actually work on the original Game Boy. That was their little goal. It came out of a game jam. They said, let's try to make a game that if we put it on the Game Boy, it'd actually run. And it's like, it's kind of like a Kirby game. You know, you're just this little cute thing and you go through like a 45-minute adventure. And I don't really recommend it, but it's very novel.
I'm glad you said that, because I was going to say I watched this trailer and it looked like a shovelware game on Game Boy. Like,
I got it out of curiosity.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
It looks like a novelty.
It's 100% a novelty. Look at this game. It's an old Game Boy game.
They even do the thing like when the game starts where instead of it saying Game Boy, slowly scrolling down from the top, it actually says the title of the game.
Yep.
So it's clearly an homage to the Game Boy. It even has the same color scheme and everything, which is a lot of fun.
That's I mean, that's really good. And I like when you see parts of nostalgia you don't see elsewhere. You know, I can't. Yeah. I'm appreciating this very slow crawl we're getting towards PS1 polygonal era nostalgia. Because I have nostalgia for that.
You're finally getting old a little bit.
A little bit. Yeah. It's great.
All right, Zach, I want to hear you talk about Coffee Talk, which is a game you've been reviewing for us, because it seemed apropos, since you work in a coffee shop or have been working in coffee shops for a good portion of your life.
Oh my God, yeah.
That you played a game about working in a coffee shop and talking to patrons. So what made you want to basically come home from work and do the same thing?
Yeah, I mean, that's a perfect way of putting it. Right, where I've worked with coffee better part of a decade now. Mm-hmm. So of course, when I get home, I want to relax to a nice coffee video game. I did this because you don't really see a lot of games where you play as a barista. So I was like, I'll check this out. Let's see how they do it.
Okay, so how does it work?
Well, you mostly just talk to patrons. The only real gameplay you're doing is every time somebody orders a drink, you have to pick the 3 ingredients, 2 primary ingredients and a secondary ingredient. And you just pick those and a drink comes out. That's the gameplay.
All right.
It does.
Are you making dialogue choices at least, or is it just?
I'll get there.
Oh.
I was gonna say you can do latte art. I guess is kind of another gameplay thing. But it does not work like latte art does even a little bit. I could not wrap my head around it at all, which was a little frustrating for someone who can do some pretty good latte art.
So you're saying you're a simulated latte art snob? I
guess so. It's just that the milk does not behave like milk does at all. So it was very confusing. And it just, I never wrapped my head around it. But you are mostly clicking dialogue boxes to make the story progress. That is the majority of your gameplay here. Every now and then, someone will throw you a drink that you're unfamiliar with, say a Marrakesh, and you do not have a recipe book for those things. You just kind of have to guess. And that can be kind of fun. I'm not sure if that's just because I work with coffee and espresso, so it's fun to try to guess what these things mean. But it is even if you get the drinks wrong, though, the story just continues anyway.
Well, that's kind of nice. You don't have any fail states.
Right. You'll just get a brief dialogue with the customers like, this is wrong. And then you just move on. I think if you get all their drinks right.
Just like real life.
You'd be surprised, actually.
Really?
Karen wants her double twisted caramel macchiato with 4 pumps of blah, blah, blah.
Outside of Starbucks, baristas get treated like bartenders, where this person is the person who gives you your drug, so you do not want to make them upset. So you will take your wrong drink happily.
Huh.
Is my life experience. But Starbucks, they advertise the barista promise. Remake any drink, no questions asked. But anyway.
So how's the conversation?
Really, the conversations are fun. The game takes place over about 2 weeks, and these patrons just kind of come in, and you start off just having this one lady as a regular. She's an author. You get to kind of be on her adventure. She writes a book, but then as things happen, other patrons start to develop their lives, and it's kind of fun. They got like a teenage girl who's running from her dad. She kind of got drama there because she wants to go off and be famous, but he thinks it's dangerous. There's a lot of push and pull there. Like, one night her dad might come in. You kind of hear the other side of the story. Kind of think it's a neat little narrative, and it's I kind of got into it. You know, it's nothing groundbreaking, the story, but there's something about the setting of experiencing these regulars' lives over the course of 2 weeks that makes it pretty interesting. Yeah, like something can happen one night and then the person refuses to come back until their friend drags them back or something like that. And the whole game is wrapped up in this really bizarre setting, which turned out to be interesting, where it's like a modern urban aesthetic, you know, like a New York, but fantasy creatures exist.
Yeah, the pictures I saw had like somebody had horns.
Right, there's like elves and stuff.
Yeah, there are elves, werewolves. There's a succubus. There's an alien who becomes a patron.
Nice.
And it just kind of makes
so it's Portland.
It's what?
So it's Portland.
It does take place in Seattle.
Oh, okay.
And I don't know. I mean, it presented an interesting setting. You know, you get to go into. Do you want to put blood in your coffee? Do you want to try that out? Try to attract vampire clientele. Not that you get to decide, but it is like a point of conversation that comes up. And they talk about topics pretty casually that you wouldn't expect. Like there's a whole like 15-minute dialogue on condoms.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah, like it's just like it's stuff people talk about, but you never see people talk about in fiction.
So it's Seinfeld, the video game.
I had a little bit of that. I can see where you're coming with that. It's just interesting to see topics you don't normally see come across.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know, it was a fun little jaunt. You know, it's like 5-6 hours long, something like that. There is an endless mode where you can just make drinks, but considering making drinks just involves clicking on the ingredients, it wasn't not terribly exciting. You're there for the story. And I've played a few of these kind of games before, especially on iPhone. There's like a whole series called Bar Oasis where you just play as a bartender.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, these are like a fun way. These are like my trashy novels of video games. Like it's
nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, well, sometimes you just want some disposable fiction.
I like it, man.
Yeah.
So Coffee Talk, you're playing it on PS4, but it's also available on PC, Switch,
Xbox One,
and Xbox One,
right?
On the Wednesday, right?
Yeah, I don't know if it's on Switch.
Yeah, it is.
Okay,
yeah, it is.
It's on Switch. That's what I meant to say.
I got your back, dude.
Absolutely. It's coming from an Indonesian developer, Toge Productions. I think is how I would pronounce it, if I had to take a guess.
I would have said Toge.
Like Doge.
Yeah.
I'm going to stick with Toge.
Toge? All right.
But they have quite an eclectic portfolio on their website, so I don't know. They seem like they're willing to try different things.
I agree.
Scott, did we ever figure out what the price was on this game?
Not yet. I have a email out to the developer.
We could not find this, no matter where we looked.
Yeah, everywhere it's just showing as a demo because it's not out yet, so we won't know the price of it. But I assume it'll be between the $9.99 and $19.99 range.
$20 should be steep. But, you know, moving on, Scott. You've been playing 1980X?
1980X, yes I have. Did you watch the trailer?
Yeah, I was sold pretty quickly, actually.
Well, you played the game. If you saw the trailer.
Womp womp.
It sounds like I'm trashing this game. This is a very short game. Speaking of games, this is a $9.99 game, and it took me 45 minutes to an hour to complete.
Whoa! Wow.
And there's not really any replayability. It ends on a somewhat of a cliffhanger. But
I'm sorry. That's just very interesting to me because so many different genres of games are represented.
Yeah, it seems like there's a lot to do.
You would think there is. At the core of this game, it's a narrative game, which I would think would make you really want to play this because you love the narrative feel of it. But there's such a paper thin narrative going on here. There's a character that's just known as a kid, and I honestly can't tell you if it's a male character or a female character. They just refer to him or her as a kid, and it looks like a masculine character, but it's very obviously voiced by a female voice actor, or at least I assume it sounds like a female voice actor, and the voice actor's name is Maya.
Maybe it's intentionally androgynous because it doesn't need to matter.
Possibly, and it really doesn't. But I think where I struggle with, I don't know, relating to this game is it feels like a love letter to arcade video games, which made me sit up and go, all right, I'm listening. But the characters' reasons for playing video games didn't really align with mine, so to speak. Like, they went to an arcade to be a rebel, and every one of these experiences that they play these games, they seem to be pushing their own thoughts and feelings of how the man is bringing them down, or their parents are telling them to clean their room, and you've got little things like that thrown in there. Now, the games themselves feel instantly familiar. They feel like games you've played before, even though they're not. They've got that 90s aesthetic, which is funny because the game is called 1980X, but the games all feel like 90s games to me instead of 80s games. But, there's one that's a shmup. There's one that's a racing game. There's one that's a beat 'em up. There's one that's an RPG. There's one that's like a ninja hack and slash game.
Well, they can't possibly be that intense at that length, right?
No, they're not. Each one lasts no more than 5 minutes. You're not playing it for very long, and even if you do die, you just say continue, and then you drop in another quarter and just keep going. So it's clearly not meant to be a difficult game or can you beat this game. It's just this is a true experience game. It's to get this.
Seems
experience.
Like a lot of work to go through for such a limited exposure, right? Like, as the developer.
It does. You basically have to create this game from the ground up, because it's not like it's an engine where you create a similar game. They're all completely different games.
Right.
And then when you get to the narrative piece, it's literally just watching a cutscene and listening, and it's not even like real cutscenes. It's very pixelated art that is, barely animated, and it's just this voice actor that it just has this tone to it that sounds very somber and trying very hard to be poetic. And I didn't relate to it. I don't know, so I feel like maybe if I had that kind of upbringing that I would, but I didn't. So it was fun to play through, but wait for a sale, for sure. All right, so before we move on to some other games that we've been catching up on, I do have a recorded interview for you. I sat down with Sean Coates to talk to him about Terminator Resistance, which he got a chance to play. He really liked it, so I'm going to let you hear his thoughts right now. I am here with our newest contributing writer, Mr. Sean Coates. Sean, how you doing today, man?
Oh, I'm doing great, Scott. This is wonderful. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, man. For those that aren't familiar with you, you've actually been on a Patreon episode or two. This is your first time making an appearance on the main show. How's it feel?
It's an honor. It's a true honor. Thank you. Again, this is wow, this is amazing.
Well, very cool, man. You are here to talk about a game that I did not get a chance to play. The game is called Terminator Resistance. This comes from the developer by the name of Teon, and it's published by Reef Entertainment. I missed this one, partially because I've heard mixed reviews on it, but I love the Terminator franchise, especially the movies. And from reading your review, it sounds like this one pays great respect to the films in terms of its look and its music. Can you tell me why?
Well, the developers seem to be fans. It's a game that seems to be made for fans by fans, and they did a fantastic job on that front.
So it really looks and feels like a Terminator movie into a game.
Oh, out of the first 5 minutes of T2, they took that and just put it in a game, and that's all I was really expecting, and I got what I expected.
After reading a review, I think I had the theme song stuck in my head for the next 2 days, and it really made me want to go back and watch the first two films, because it's been a while since I've seen them, and it's a lot. I love those movies so much. So tell me about the gameplay. It's first-person shooter, yes?
Yes, it is. Basically, this was actually a long-time pipe dream I had. I always thought, it would make a great video game if you played like a Call of Duty-like shooter set within the first 5 minutes of T2. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of what this is. It's not quite as bombastic as Call of Duty. If I had to compare it to another military shooter, it kind of reminds me of the original Medal of Honors. Remember those games?
Oh, yeah, from the PS2 era?
From the PS1, PS2 era, yeah. Because you're primarily on your own. You're not always with a squad the whole time. Mm-hmm. You're predominantly doing fetch quests in the ruins of LA. Okay,
well, fetch quests don't sound super fun in a Terminator game. So what is about the gameplay that you love so much that's making you like it?
Well, fetch quest probably wasn't the right term, but you are doing missions for the Resistance, going out into the world. You come across Terminators in the wild, and they're just fun to shoot down. They're at first, before you get any sort of like plasma weapon, you're stuck with regular guns that, as you know in the films, don't work. So it's best to steer clear of them.
Right.
So in that case, it actually kind of feels like a stealth game because you're best to avoid them.
Interesting.
Although you are given it's a craftable item. It's called the Termination Knife. It allows you to take down Terminators kind of, Far Cry style, which is really nice.
Oh, that's cool. Well, one of the problems with Terminator games in the past, and I'm thinking of like Terminator Salvation, although I did enjoy that game, but that game felt like you were just mowing down Terminators. They just felt like normal enemies. And if you've watched, especially the first Terminator movie, that it was an unstoppable force. Do you get that sense when you're fighting these Terminators that they are ridiculously powerful and have to be brought down, or are you just kind of mowing them down left and right like you were in Salvation?
At first, yes, they are quite a threat, because again, if you don't have any sort of plasma-based weapons, it's impossible. In fact, the game will tell you if you shoot at something that's not powerful enough, the game will say, hey, this is an ineffective weapon. Stop it, basically.
Okay.
There's a thing on the HUD that will tell you this is an ineffective weapon. Oh. So, again, at first, they're quite difficult to take down. Shotguns will stun them, just like in the films. Kyle Reese would shoot him, and then he'd fall through the glass, and only to get back up again. Right. Same thing happens here. They're stunned, and you use the opportunity to just run, get away from them, because they'll, after a while, if you're out of their field of vision, they'll stop hunting you.
That sounds kind of cool. So, how's the story?
Really good. It fits in nicely with the overall mythology. It doesn't shake things up. It doesn't retcon or do any of the things that the later sequels did. It fits in brilliantly, and it's actually a prequel story that kicks off the first movie.
Oh, that's really cool. So does it finish and like lead into the start of the first movie?
Yes, it does, without spoiling anything specific. But yes, it does kick off T1 and T2.
Oh, man, I may have to play this game now. Now, I said I didn't play this game. However, we did have a bunch of people over at my house playing games. We just all kind of set up TVs in my basement, and we're playing games. And the guy I happened to be sitting next to was playing this on PC. And although I didn't really watch him play it, I could overhear the dialogue. And I got to be honest, man, some of that dialogue sounded a little suspect in terms of the quality of the voice work. Did you find that prevalent through the whole game, or did I just catch a bad section of it?
No, it's pretty consistent throughout the game, unfortunately. That is one of the major cons of this game. At least the main character is decent enough, but all the NPCs you come across are very stilted, and like I said, the emotions feel forced, and
that's too bad. Especially because it was nails on a chalkboard bad for me in a couple situations. So, and I didn't hear the main character. Right. I just heard the non-playable characters. But so overall, is this a game that I should check out? I noticed that it's $59.99, which I thought this was a budget title game for some reason.
It is on Steam, but for some reason, for console gamers, it's full price, and that I admit, I don't recommend it at that price.
Okay.
I was able to pick this up thanks to a leftover Christmas gift card. Nice. So it was no money out of my direct. I know, right? No money out of my direct pocket. But yeah, it is full price, and I guess I would recommend this for the true diehards to get it as soon as possible. Mm-hmm. But I definitely say wait for a sale for anyone else, and who knows? I might come to Game Pass one day, and.
Yeah, it's kind of sad that we're in that state now where you kind of consider that. Like, is this game just going to come to Game Pass and I'll have to pay for it later? But hey, we'll see. So again, that is Terminator Resistance. Sean, thanks so much for coming and talking about this. This sounds like a game I definitely need to check out as a fan of the movies.
Yes, but wait for a sale.
All right, man. Well, you have a good one, and thanks for stopping by.
You got it. Thank you for having me.
Jeff, anything else you've been catching up on?
I already mentioned that I've been going through 100%ing Children of Morta, and when the busy fall season came around, I fell off of Fire Emblem 3 Houses. I really wish I knew. I really wish that I could know everybody listening to this had played through it, because I would love to tell you why I fell off, but it's kind of spoilery. But essentially something happened and I was like, oh, that's cool. And this is a really cool change in the story direction. And then I just lost interest, and I didn't think I would, but I did. And now I'm seeing that game start to slip out of my grasp, and I'm like, no, I've got to finish this. I put like 74 hours into it. I can't bail on it now. So I picked it back up about a week ago, and I'm loving it. It's an awesome game, but I just fell off. So trying to clean that one up.
Well, the guy you want to talk to on that one is Patrick Klein from our community. He's from the EXP cast. He loves that game, so you can talk to him freely about it.
Awesome.
Zach, what about you?
Well, man, all this Court of Owls fervor, jump back into Arkham Origins. Originally, I just wanted to test PS Now with it, but man, that game holds up.
Oh, yeah?
That game rocks.
And you're playing it on PS Now?
I am, yeah. Yeah,
cool.
There's occasionally issue with the streaming that messes up my combat, which is very frustrating to me because I take my Arkham combat pretty seriously. And the timing in general and the animations in that game are just a little bit different than Rocksteady's, which throws me way off. But that game is really good. All the Joker stuff in that game is phenomenal. I can see why.
I did not finish that one.
It's really good, man. I can see why at the time I was annoyed with the Joker being in there.
Mm-hmm.
But now years removed, especially with Arkham Knight, and you kind of make all of the Arkham is about that relationship, Batman Joker.
Right.
It's good stuff. Oh, and then also
cool.
I played Overcooked 2 quite extensively. I just wanted to weigh in because everybody loves this game to death, and I just want to say I don't like it at all. I think it's really bad. Yeah, I think it's pretty bad.
But you played it extensively.
Co-op? I did, yeah. I played hours of it. Yeah, I did play co-op, yes. It's just...
Okay.
It does not do it for me. I will say I never... Like the diner dashes and stuff like that, never did it. There's just so much to keep track of, I guess, for me.
It is stressful.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the game has this weird effect where even when you're doing well, it feels like you're doing terrible.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh my god, I can't believe we survived that. Then you get like 3 stars plus triple the score or whatever. Like, how did this happen?
That's actually a very apt way of describing that game. It's constantly stressful.
Yeah,
so.
But no such thing as a bad game, Scott. Those games that aren't for me.
Fair enough. I finally jumped into Half-Life 2 this week. I borrowed the orange box from CB, and boy, that feels like a early 2000s PC shooter. Because it is. I mean, that's a very profound saying, but
you don't think it's timeless?
It's crazy. No, I mean, it's hard to say that any game is truly timeless. I mean, after you put any kind of time behind it, it's going to start showing its age.
A Link to the Past.
Okay,
it's pretty timeless.
Chrono Trigger.
Okay, all right.
Super Mario Brothers 3.
All right, guys, you got me. It's just crazy how much shooters have changed at this point. I feel like these guys are, bullet sponges, and they don't move. There's no AI at all. You shoot them 4 times, and then they move to the side a little bit, and then you just shoot them the 5th time, final time. I have no idea what's going on in the story because I have not played through the first one.
Hey, I never did, and let me tell you, it'll make more sense as you play.
Okay, all right. I'm on a mission to get through the entire thing because I would like to be prepared for Half-Life Alyx.
You have to remember, a lot of people when they and I'll tell you that I kind of feel the same way about Half-Life 2. I feel awful about it, but you have to remember it's not just like the gravity gun and that part of the gameplay, but it really was at the time there weren't games that were telling stories in that first person perspective. I mean, I remember that was in like my freshman or sophomore year of college, and my roommate was playing Half-Life 2 and I was playing Metroid Prime 2. And it's like, I love Metroid Prime. Well, 2 is not the best of them, but
thank you.
But it's still great, but that game is just running around, finding stuff, shooting. And, he was experiencing a story. And so, in that vein, I got to give it a little bit more credit than I think I do. But I feel very similarly to you when I've tried to play through Half-Life 2.
I will, for years, I would try Half-Life 2 and bounce off of it.
Mhm.
And what finally got me to give it a whirl, like to stick with it, was I stopped thinking of it as a shooter, and I started thinking of it as an adventure game that happens to have shooting in it.
Okay.
And that helped me get through it, and I think the story it's incredibly confusing at first, but it does start to make more sense, and the G-Man's really good. And you do start to care about the characters like Alex and Eli and stuff like that, and after I let go of the idea of it being a shooter and embrace it as more of an adventure game, I played through it, loved it, played episodes 1 and 2, got on the bandwagon of being mad that there was no episode 3, all of that.
Well, I will keep going. I really am intrigued. I don't even know why they're shooting at me. I don't understand who is after me, why they're trying to kill me. The government, I assume, and I know too much. That's all I can gather.
Well, the thing of it is you're out of time and space anyway, so you're so far removed from the events of the first game that it wouldn't help you anyway.
Okay.
Because I've gone back and played the first Half-Life to some degree, and the events of that game, at the end of the first Half-Life, the G-Man picks you up and puts you in a different era of time, basically. So really,
spoiler alert! Come on,
yeah,
now.
right.
No, I already knew. I did some research on on the first half.
I'm just saying, like, I think you're supposed to be confused at the start of that game.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I will keep going, and people keep raving about it. Was this like one of the first games to have like objects that you could actually pick up and drop and throw and stuff too? Was that like a big deal back then?
Yes.
Okay.
There's a section of the game where you get you're only allowed to use a gravity gun against these like zombie creatures. It's Ravenholm, I want to say, and yeah, that was. I feel like even years later, that was an impressive segment.
Well, because I remember the first part, you have to get off the train, because you get off a train just like you do in the first Half-Life game. Is that like a staple in these games? The game starts on a train?
We will never know, because we don't get to have the third game to find out if it's a franchise staple.
So, but you get off there and there's like telephones you can pick up, cans of pop. I mean, but in my gamer brain says, oh, go try to do this stuff to uncover something or pick up a secret something, and no, it's just there just to be like, hey, you can do this, but it doesn't come into play yet. I don't have the gravity gun yet. That's how early in the game I am. So
right.
Yeah, you know how there's all those games like Death Stranding, everybody says don't render your verdict until you get to the 3rd chapter, and now my mind's blanking. I can't think of a bunch of other examples like that.
Mm-hmm.
Final Fantasy VII, at least get to the overworld, get out of Midgar. Half-Life 2, just as Zach said, it's get to Ravenholm.
Okay.
That seems to be, would you agree?
Yeah, well, and not only Ravenholm, but there's like a lot of story stuff that happens right beforehand where you get to learn more about Alex and the robot character Dog. And it's so like that whole hour and a half, 2 hours of that game is pretty remarkable.
It is good.
I will stick with it and report back next week for sure. But that is going to do it for this episode of The Gaming Outsider. Jeff, thank you so much for being our guest this week, man. It was a pleasure to talk with you.
It was a blast. Loved coming on.
Yeah, you're welcome back anytime, brother. It was a lot of fun. Where can our listeners follow you and your work?
So I run the podcast Nindie Nation, Nindie Nation, and I say I run it. I kind of accidentally inherited it, but that's a long story. We're a weekly podcast. You can search for it wherever finer podcasts are distributed. It's about 20 to 30 minutes long every week. We run through every single indie game that comes out on the Switch, so usually about 20 to 30 games per week, as well as all of the current indie deals that are out on the eShop. And you can follow me on Twitter at Nindie Nation as well. The Nindie Nation product is a part of the Nintendo Village at thenintendovillage.com, which is kind of similar to Gaming Outsider, but only Nintendo focused. And there's a lot of British people that are a part of it. And I think that's about it. I'm going to forget something. Oh, we've also got a YouTube channel with Let's Play videos and a couple of other things like that, as well as a video version of each episode of the podcast.
Sounds good, man. Thanks so much for that. I know we got a bunch of people that are massive Nintendo fans and complain that we don't talk about Nintendo games quite enough, so they'll definitely be interested in that. Zach, any parting words or recommendations for the listeners?
Man, I can't plug nearly as well as Jeff. Sounds like he's rehearsed that a few times. But for me, I got Smirk, my storytelling and creative writing podcast, where we write a short story every week to get to a moral or theme of the topic, to something to talk about, debate, sometimes argue. It's a lot of fun. This most recent episode was me, and I actually went with an inspiring story. Which is pretty unusual.
That is unusual.
So if you want to see Zach try to be positive, that's your best bet. Smirk.
All right. Well, thanks so much, everybody, for listening. Please be sure to email us if you have any questions or concerns. Our address is feedback@thegamingoutsider.com. Until next week, I'm Scott Clark with Zach Parkerson and Jeff Swann, and we are The Gaming Outsider. And remember, there's no such thing as a bad game, just games that aren't for you.